Welcome to the Motherhood Mentor Podcast. I'm Becca, a somatic healing practitioner and a holistic life coach for moms, and this podcast is for you. You can expect honest conversations and incredible guests that speak to health, healing, and growth in every area of our lives. This isn't just strategy for what we do, it's support for who we are. I believe we can be wildly ambitious while still holding all of our soft and hard humanity as holy. I love combining deep inner healing with strategic systems and no-nonsense talk about what this season is really like. So grab whatever weird health beverage you're currently into and let's get into it. Welcome to today's episode of the Motherhood Mentor Podcast. I have a really fun guest with me today, Mark Walsh. And when I first asked him to be on the podcast, he was like, well, I'm not a mom, but tell me more. So I'm really excited to have you and talk about embodiment, but also some other fun things I think that might come up. So will you introduce yourself and the work you want to do in the work you do in the world in whatever way feels good to explain yourself today?
No, only joking. So I didn't, I thought, why am I getting invited on? I'm not a mum. I can't explain mumhood. That's ridiculous. But then I saw your podcast. You did great work, Rebecca, like really interesting stuff around trauma and somatics and, meaning and all sorts of interesting things. And this is what I'm interested in. So I'm happy to chat. My life is embodiment. I'm probably one of the people that has made that a hashtag. I apologize. Over the last 20 years. So I train coaches to work with the body. That's my main job. I have a podcast talking to interesting people around that. I've worked in businesses. I started a charity in Ukraine and have worked in multiple areas of conflict. And I work with young boys, taking them to the gym when their mums decide they need a bit of help. So yeah, a few aspects to what I do. Mostly what I like to do, though, is just be rude, provocative, and tell jokes. So hopefully we'll get into that.
I love it. I love it so much. So for someone who doesn't know what embodiment is or what it looks like, especially because it's not as, at least for me, it's not mental and cognitive, but I bet you can explain it really well.
You're like my mum at Christmas. Mark, what is it you do for a living? What is this embodiment thing?
What does it mean? What is somatics? And I'm like, well.
Yeah. So the body, the lived experience of the body. So the body, the subjective study of the body. So the body can be viewed as an object. And that's not very nice when that happens to us, though the medical system does that. That may happen as dating. It happens in the modern workplace. The body is a thing, as an it. But the body is also a part of who we are as people. That's why if you lose your arm, how careless, you would be upset because you would have lost part of yourself. It's different than just losing your phone or something, which is annoying, but not part of you. So the idea of the body as more than a brain taxi, as a key aspect of being human. And this has applications to health and well-being, human flourishing. It's my kind of big area, really, to coaching. That's my main professional application. Trauma, obviously, comes through the body. So many areas that people, boundaries, I know you've had people talk about on the show. So if we're interested in these areas, we can read the books, but then that's just what one of my teachers used to call shelf help. It stays on the shelf and it doesn't help. Whereas if we get the body involved, we might actually have some transformation, some ability to change our behavior. So that's the short version. You could also say it's a field of study that involves certain areas. It's a type of intelligence. We can go into that. Yeah. Nobody knows what it is. It's just a hashtag to make yoga teachers sound cool.
I love that. I explained it the other day of, I'm starting to understand basketball a little bit because I'm watching my daughter play. And what you should know is like, I'm a very non-athletic. Well, I'm athletic in other ways, but when it comes to things like basketball, me watching basketball and reading about basketball isn't going to actually help me play basketball.
No, for listeners, by the way, I'm actually on a Zoom call, Rebecca, and she's 6'2", black and male, for those who don't know. Yeah. It's like reading a book about kissing, right? It's not going to make you a great lover or, let's take motherhood. There's a lived experience of motherhood. There's an actual experience of it, which I will never understand. Now, I could read books on it. I could read theory on it. I can certainly talk to my friends and empathize. And I've worked with 50,000 children, so I might have something interesting to say to them. But the actual embodiment of being a mother, I will never know. Oh. So that's important because that's a whole domain of knowing, even if I were to read all the books on being a mum. And we could learn from books, but it's not the same. So
it's so not the same because especially in my early motherhood, I had done therapy, I had done all this learning, and I would read these books about like how to parent, but then I'd go to do it. And it's like, it's one thing for me to know logically how to deal with my toddler's tantrums. It's
Yes.
another thing when she's dysregulated and I'm dysregulated to in my body know how to deal with that and how to show up to it. So I'm curious, what does it look like and feel like if you're not embodied? Like, what are some of the ways people might know, am I embodied? What does this even mean?
Yeah, so just to speak to what you just said, so learning and knowing about something is very different than learning a skill, and the ontological level of learning is most deep, right? So
Mhm.
this is sort of a confusion in the whole of Western culture, really, that we confuse knowing about things. We have one verb in English, to know, that actually means several things. And, philosophers, for example, will split those up and say that's perspectival knowing versus procedural knowing, and there's different types
Mm.
of, brain systems involved. So that just, that now, but it's also just to give a little bit of language around that for people. Now, in terms of embodiment, everyone's unconsciously embodied. So what does that mean? It means we have an operating system, like a dog has that, right? You see some dogs and they're like, hello, they're like, how can I help? There's dogs that are friendly and I got that embodiment. That's an unconscious embodiment. So we all have one of those. And that may be, from our culture, from our family, from our trauma, from the practices we do, all those sort of things. But we can develop a more conscious embodiment. So we're more aware of our states, but also our traits. So it's a bit more than
Mm.
mindfulness in that sense. And once we have that awareness, we can develop some range and some choice. But that takes practice. So, for example, you might be like, hey, I'm aware that I'm really stressed. That's great. Then you know that that's going to do certain things to your parenting, podcasting, whatever. And then it's, what tools do I have that I've practiced that can step in to help with that? So, I was a bit grumpy before this interview. I had nothing to do with you. I had a doctor who was supposed to call me and didn't. And I was rah, rah, NHS, rah, rah, rah. So, I co-regulate a little bit with my girlfriend in the kitchen for 2 minutes. That's not the sexy version, just for listeners. Just a quick hug. So yeah, and then I did a quick breathing exercise on my own, like a bit of self-regulation. I'd been walking in the by the river, what I call eco-regulation, and then theo-regulation, the fourth kind. I invented two of these words, by the way, so if you haven't heard them before, don't worry. Theo-regulation means regulating through meaning and purpose. So it's, for example,
Mm.
going, wow, I'm going to help people here. I'm going to be of service, hopefully to some mums who are struggling. They have a hard time. I want to help them. And that inspires me and gets me out of my bad mood. So self-regulation, co-regulation, that's the important one. Eco-regulation, that's important too. And theo-regulation, purpose, meaning, spirituality. This is what keeps us sane.
Yeah.
And disembodied people lack those things because the body is the gateway to all the others, right? So, and the body is the one we can do the most about, because being a mum is impossible as far as I can tell, because the village has just been destroyed,
Yeah.
and people don't have any kind of spiritual meaning at the center of sort of the nihilistic Western world. And on top of that, our ecosystems are damaged, and there isn't much nature for most people living in urban environments. Maybe in Colorado you're a bit better off than some. And because of that, it's just very difficult to be in one's body because it's chaos. It's just that either frozen or in that fight or flight response, or in the grasping response, which is what our entire economic system is based on. So this is a bit of a black pill. It's a little bit like bad news. So when we talk about disembodiment, we're
Yeah.
really widening it to this much bigger picture.
Yeah.
Happily, there are things we can do about it.
Yeah. You just said so much stuff that I'm like, this is so
Take your
good.
time. Take your time. That's
No,
like the
but
theory of the meaning of life that I just gave you
I
there, Rebecca. So we can pick it apart.
but I love your last, what did theo-regulation?
Yeah, so self, co, eco, and theo. So there are four
Yeah.
kinds of connection that are mutually supporting or sabotaging. So one helps the other, right? Like if
Yeah.
I'm in my body, I can connect to my girlfriend better. If we're in nature, we're gonna have a nicer connection. If we're orientated around meaning, we're gonna have a better connection. We're gonna be more in our bodies, and we're gonna enjoy nature more. So they can be they can be mutually supporting or mutually sabotaging.
Yeah. Cause I mean, even, motherhood really does feel impossible. And I love that you're talking about the cultural context, because I think especially the self-help world gets this so it's so individualistic, and it's so like it
Rebecca, I know you might not have any money and your family live far away from home and the community doesn't support you and you don't have a system of faith and you're feeling isolated and set off in the world and you're surrounded by technology that's sending you insane. But do some yoga, bitch.
have you tried
Like,
manifesting? Have you
yeah,
tried being positive? I
it's
mean,
complicit. It's
but
complicit.
the women, like I work with women who are highly intelligent. They've done healing work, they've done personal growth work. Some of them are spiritual, some of them are spiritual in different contexts. And it's so wild to me that like, and I include myself in this, that on a regular basis, I'm like, have I tried being good and grateful? Have I tried? And then it's like, wait, no, like I need a fuck it list. I need like the world feels like it's burning on fire and I'm trying to raise children while breaking generational cycles. Like, what the hell does that even mean? And how do we do
A
it?
lot.
But I can't, but if I think we can't do individual healing work without talking about the collective, and you can't do collective work without talking about the individual. And I'm someone who, like, lately, some of the stuff happening in the world, I want to bury my head in the sand. And then I remember that, like, I just have to come back to the individual and where my hands can reach and where my feet can reach. But I want to get back to this Theo part, this
Yeah,
Theo
Rebecca,
regulation,
just
because
can I just give you a bit of love first of all? Like, if you feel
sure,
insane, you're
sure.
not insane.
Yeah.
Okay. Like what you just said, I hear that so many times from clients around
Oh,
the
yeah.
world. You are not the only one. So it's
Yeah.
sane to notice how insane we are.
And I think too, and tell me your perspective on this. I think what's hard is staying hopeful in that. Like I don't want to be someone who pretends that everything is fine when things aren't fine. Like I will
Sure.
not sweep things under the rug of good and grateful. Everything's all good. That feels like toxic family abusive culture all over again.
Sure.
But I also don't want to be someone who's just drowning in this world. Like that also doesn't feel like an option. Just giving up and saying fuck it all also feels not an option. So there's this
Would you
tension
like
to
some?
hold.
Yeah, yeah. Would you like some
Yeah.
strategies for remaining
Yes,
hopeful as the universe
always.
burns?
I feel like a lot of us, I feel like a lot of women could use that because I work with a lot of women who are high functioning, but they're burning out.
Yeah, yeah. And, women, modernity is hard on everyone, but I think it's particularly insane for women because it's designed for kind of pushing, driving for stronger, faster, more. And most women just aren't set up to enjoy that. Like, I'm in quite a yang guy. I fight, I lift weights, I'm sort of, macho kind of guy. And I find it exhausting.
Mm,
So for my Italian girlfriend, who's much more femme, I mean, it's just completely, she's done hardcore NGO work. She's pretty, she's to be respected. She's smart. She speaks 6 languages, but it's just exhausting. And I think most of the women I know, it's just, cyclical, feeling based creatures. It's just too much for this
mm.
mechanized, stronger, faster, harder, more. It's just too much. It's too much for
You mean we
me.
can't
And
like
I'm
David Goggins it?
no,
I
he's
don't know.
deeply traumatized. He's deeply traumatized and is going to burn out before he's 50 anyway. So it's David Cook is absolutely not the answer. This sort of you should be invincible is ridiculous. So when I work in Ukraine, so I founded In the War, a charity in Ukraine, and we deal with the most horrific things you can imagine, things that I won't discuss on a podcast, just for your listeners' well-being. Really,
Yeah.
really dark things. And we joke a lot and we laugh a lot. And there is the philosophy of absurdism, I think, is very helpful as a way out of nihilism, is when you realize there's a dick joke at the end of the universe, that it's all ridiculous. You have
Yeah.
to be a bit Rick and Morty about it. And this is a very Anglo-Irish strength culturally. So it's, I had a lot of Jewish teachers as well, which are very helpful in this regard. The Jews are
Yeah.
great at this, and it's I think that absurdity and laughter is definitely part of it. Another thing is you need to surround yourself with wholesome people as much as you can, because what I call the anti-culture, right? It's like the antichrist, the anti-culture around us is not wholesome. And every time you turn on your phone, it's not wholesome. You are being poisoned for profit and control. It is a
Oof.
conspiracy.
Yeah.
So what do we do? I buy house plants. I make my house beautiful. I date someone lovely. I have friends that I have saunas with. I surround myself as much as I can with sanity. And the Buddhists talk about guarding the gates of the senses. Like my Ukraine team, for example, I'm like, stop checking the news,
Mm.
right? Like check the news once a week. It's enough. Okay. Like stop checking the news every 2 minutes. It's poison. So stop ingesting poison when you have a choice, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, socially, is very, very key. And
Mhm.
we have to choose our battles there, because you can get neurotic about it and be like, oh, everything is tap water's bad, and this plastics are bad, and my underpants have to be cotton, and you can get really neurotic about it.
Yeah.
Cotton underpants, though, I do recommend. Anyway, so for the boys. So yeah, there's a couple of strategies. One is laughter, and one is second one would be community, wholesome community. Third one is guarding the gates of the senses, i.e., reducing the sort of toxicity load on all four of those layers. And that's going to be different depending on our situation. I was lucky enough to be able to move to the countryside, right? Not everyone has that luxury. So,
Yeah.
I'm aware that there are people out there who don't have some of these luxuries that I have, but I go, okay, I'm going to choose to do the healthy things where I can.
Mhm. And what luxuries are accessible to you where you are and
Yeah, some
you have
practices are cheap,
available?
some aren't. Like,
Yeah.
like gratitude practice is cheap. TRE is cheap, trauma therapy,
Memes.
TRE. Yeah, other things aren't. Go for a walk in the woods is cheap, but maybe you don't have the time, right? You've got five
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
So, and again, this is where it's tricky, because without the village to support us, we're just low. You know what I mean by the village? So this is the idea of the Paleolithic village, the support network. Even in Southern Europe, I see that. If I'm in Italy, there'll be like old people eating ice cream together in the town square, and then their grandkids come along, and everyone's having food together as families. In Spain, Italy, you see
Yeah.
this much more. America's a absolute desert of modernity. Your country looks, outside the country, in the cities, is a parking lot. It's just ugly. And it's a desert socially. People don't have that co-regulation that you see in some of the sort of blue zones, Okinawa, or some of the Mediterranean, for example. So we can learn from different cultures, and they each have a kind of piece of the puzzle, is how I see it.
Yeah. I mean, one, people need to follow you on Instagram because you are my favorite meme dealer. Like,
I deal the best
bar
memes.
none. So people love my memes, and I'm like, lately, I just feel like I'm stealing half of yours. Of like, well, just go follow Mark. He gets them first, and then I just redeal them to my audience.
And I'll
But
take it one step further. If someone's got a book called How Not to Give a Fuck, mine's called Don't Be a Cunt. We always go one step further. People have tried to cancel me for years. It hasn't happened. So, I'm just still getting away with being me, which is great fun.
see, that's an embodiment. I'm still, the recovering people pleaser in me is still learning that embodiment because that does not come natural to me. And I've gotten further than I used to be. But like that level, like what you just did, I was like, okay, I'm going to think of Mark when I think of like, how do I embody this in a way that doesn't feel like being an asshole? Because I think a lot of people, when they're coming out of people pleasing or when they're trying to learn a new embodiment, they're
Yes.
terrified of this, like, who will I become if I'm not this soft, nice, good girl
I
kind of
wrote, I
thing?
wrote, I wrote a book on people pleasing, because it kept
Yep.
coming up with my students after we did some videos and stuff, and it kept being a big thing. And there is a stage called the obnoxious stage people go through. So that is a real risk. They're not wrong. And also, I would say that we do need to be people pleasers, just not
Mm,
at the expense of ourselves. We need to be in service to others. I mean, the sort of individual American dream of putting oneself at the center of the universe. I mean, that's a recipe for suffering.
yeah.
Like, absolutely, we need to put spirit or service or community at the center of the universe, and not ourselves. So there's a sort of narcissism to a lot of personal growth, which is the other side of people pleasing, right? I think the two most popular pop topics I speak about on Instagram.
Yeah. I mean, especially because, and I see this with boundaries work a lot. Like, I don't know what your feed looks like, but like the amount of stuff I see about boundaries being just like how to cut people out of your life when they disagree with you or they
Yeah,
trigger
it's
you.
obnoxious.
And I'm like, any healthy person, like, there's this quote of like, the only people who are going to be mad about your boundaries is going to be toxic, narcissistic people. And I was
Yeah,
just
and
like, my
maybe the
toddler's
baby,
mad. Like,
yeah, your baby chewing on your nipple, who's got absolutely no respect for your bodily integrity. I
I,
mean, I do some fun videos on this. And it's like, don't feed your children when they cry. That's people pleasing. It's children don't get it. So we can teach them boundaries over time, but it takes a while. Frankly,
yeah.
my mum still doesn't get my boundaries. I'll be staying at her house, and she'll walk in when I'm getting changed. I've seen it all before. And it's just human beings. So we've got to cut each other some slack there. It's this overly assertive, impersonating asshole men thing that Hollywood has pushed recently. Like,
Yeah.
hey, the best way to be a woman is to be like toxically masculine. Like, that's absolutely bizarre. And it doesn't, I'm going to be honest, like, if it's making you happy, go for it. But the whole sort of girl boss thing, being mean to everyone, I just don't see that making women happy. Tell me if that's your experience.
No, no, it leads to a lot of burnout and resentment and feeling too hard and rigid, and they lose that sense of softness or rest or peace because they're so rigid and their boundaries become these big giant walls that keep out vulnerability and deep connection with other people. And it ends up being this whole other thing. So I'm curious, we were talking before we started recording about like you're like really into this meaning making, and then you said another word, and I really want to hear about this. Tell me about meaning making. What does that mean?
Yes. So
What does it look like?
a couple of years, I mean, I've always been interested in meaning since I read Nietzsche at 16 and wanting to kill myself.
Mm,
And then I became an alcoholic because I didn't have anything to live for. And when you don't have anything to live for, hedonism's all that's left. And, I interviewed Anna Lemke from Dopamine Nation recently for my podcast. And she basically says, yeah, neuroscience says if you seek pleasure, all you'll get is pain. And that is the entire center of our soulless, godless culture. So, again, I'm being pretty dark here, right? And this is the situation we find ourselves in. I call it the desert of modernity or the swamp of postmodernity. And this has got really bad the last 10 years. Mental health crisis is absolutely ridiculous. Last time I was in the States, there was just weird druggy zombies everywhere. Everyone's mentally ill. Like all the
and I
kids I
don't
know
think
are
it's getting
depressed.
better from us talking about it.
No, there are
It,
things we can do about it. But the first thing, though, is
yeah.
to name the actual causes of it
Mm,
correctly. So the causes of it, for example, people say, oh, yeah, men should talk about their feelings more. It's like, no, they shouldn't, because that's not how men get happy. Men need to get stronger. Men need
mm,
community. Men need meaning. There's things men need that are like way above the list than being listened to. Like it's not, the problem with men is not that they're broken women and vice versa. So we
mm.
need to correctly diagnose the root of the issue, which is this in terms of spiritually, the meaning crisis, disembodiment, lack of village, the eco destruction, and this sort of, as I said, the lack of meaning. This is absolutely key. And then there's other factors around that, like the technology, which, frankly, there are drug dealers in our houses and, we should throw them out of our houses. And
Yeah.
there are people with names and addresses, just in case anyone feels like I'm encouraging terrorism against tech companies. Yeah, I might be. So,
I was going to
you
say we're on a
you can edit
podcast,
that
but you're
out if you
nodding your
want.
head.
You
Yeah.
can edit that out if you need to.
Yeah.
So there's a whole situation we're in, and we first need to look at that. And then how do we find it? What happened was a lot of single mums and lesbian mums started asking me to have a said, oh, can you talk to my boy? He needs a mentor. And they thought I might be good at that for whatever reason. And I said, listen, I'm not going to really talk to him because that's weird, but I'll take him for the gym. I would take them to the gym because I like working out, and I'd take the guys to the gym. And the boys like that kind of thing, and you could talk while you're doing it, and basically do what I'd call embodied coaching. I do with
Yeah.
regular folks, and yeah, a lot of stuff comes up around addictions, around relationships, around meaning, and we work through that. And there's a whole bunch of stuff I recommend to them. There's a whole bunch of ways to find meaning, and a lot of it's just sort of stuff their mum told them anyway, but they don't listen. They go through that stage where they don't listen to their mums, and the mums usually love it. Like they wouldn't love what I'm saying half the time. Like some of your more liberal audience would be horrified by what I'm saying, but they love the outcome. And
Mm.
that's, like one boy I took to the gym just kind of split up with his druggy girlfriend who was a really bad influence on him. And his mum, texted me to say, thank you so much. This was a really negative influence, and he stopped smoking weed and he's doing much better. And it's like, yeah, no problem. They need that. Again, the village is, the positive men in their lives who aren't their dad, basically. And a lot of them don't even have dads. So, yeah, it's super satisfying. And I've sort of extended it from the boys to everybody else. And also in Ukraine, it's really important. If you're going to work with trauma in Ukraine, it's not enough to say, do some mindfulness. You really have to, we call it the tetrarchies, these four things, the self, the relationships, the eco, and the theo. You have to use all of those when things are really catastrophic, and maybe one of them works. We take
Yeah.
soldiers on retreats in the mountains, or we do spiritual work with them, and we do the sort of more therapeutic embodiment stuff. The things you might expect. So yeah, it's become a sort of overarching model of human happiness, how to seek the meaning of life, and from a coaching point of view, it's really helpful to have this model when you're coaching someone.
Yeah.
Because if you just tell them to do mindfulness and the other stuff isn't there, then you're really missing the big picture.
Yeah. Or if their mind doesn't feel like a safe place to be. Like if the thoughts they're having
Yeah,
feel
and
terrible and self-critical or shaming or
for sure, but their safety is overrated, and I'm a big fan of shame. So,
tell me more about that.
we need to
Tell me
bring back
about that.
shame. We need to bring back shame. So we need to bring back ethics and morality generally. What's happened in postmodernity, particularly in liberal America, is the good, the true, and the beautiful have all been smashed. What does that mean? The good means we don't have a system of right or wrong. We don't have any way of saying what's right or wrong, which is ridiculous and impossible because we have to make decisions. So we need to have values. So just when we leave the house, we have to have a system. The true, no one knows what's true anymore. So this post-truth world, no one trusts the media rightly. No one trusts the government rightly. No one trusts traditional religion rightly. No one trusts anything. What do you come back to? Your own body is a good starting place. And then the beautiful, the world is ugly. Like things are not beautiful in the buildings we're building, the technology, the clothes, like the way people dress, the way people do everything now. It's just ugly. And these three things are an absolute spiritual disaster to have smashed in this condition of postmodernity. And as a result, we're all going crazy because we can't live without those. So, like people you hear in America say, don't shame me, this hyper individualism of like nobody gets to tell me what to do. It's so teenage, it's so silly. It's like we absolutely like I fat shame my sister all the time. It's absolutely helpful. And here's a good example, actually, right? I love my sister and she became obese. And there's factors around stress and motherhood and all sorts of things. And I said to her, this is not okay. You're going to die before your kids have grandchildren. Your kids have kids. And I want you around when my kids are born. And it's not okay that you're obese. And I will help you and support you to do something about this if you want. Right. And she was like, oh, fuck off. Don't shame me. No one tells me what to do. A month later, she's rushed into hospital with a serious life-threatening condition related to it. And she phones me up the day afterwards, from hospital and says, you're right. What are we going to do about it? And I've got nothing but love. But it's like, and I can give her some practical help.
Is that shame? Because when you said like you want shame back, I was like, what?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was like, wait, tell me more. And then I'm curious about this. But then what you just described to me, I was like, I don't hear that as shame. I hear that as guilt. I hear that as
listen, this guilt shame thing, the Americans have got it wrong around. It depends how you language it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm absolutely talking about the moral domain, to be clear. Okay. And this isn't just like, oh, well, someone has trauma and that's why, and it's an excuse for everything. And it's my neuroatypicality. It's such bullshit. It's like, let's actually talk about virtue. The Greeks had a system for this. Even the samurai had a system for this. Every traditional culture in the world, every tribe in America has a system for this. So goodness is absolutely a part of it. Now, we can be trauma informed. We can add in, more sophisticated behavioral perspectives as well. But trying to medicalize and psychologize away ethics and beauty is just ridiculous. So, and I know this is challenging because it's that hyper individual. I'm the boss of me. No one gets to tell me what to do. This is just bullshit. And also the language is difficult because the use of the word guilt and shame. So shame, as I use it, and I know other people use it differently, is this kind of social, moral, the use of morality socially. Guilt is more intrapersonal, not interpersonal.
Yeah. Okay. So when you think of shame, you think of the word that's coming up to me is, now I just lost the word. I had a really good word.
Social pressure.
Is this talking about? Accountability.
Yeah, that's part of it for sure.
Or like love, or like bringing people, like
loving shame, absolutely. There's got to be love there. I mean, you're not just being an asshole to my sister. Like there's there's love and there's offers of support and practical help, and it's coming from care. And it's like, I want to see you get old.
Yeah,
it's not okay that you're fat. What are we going to do about it? Right?
Yeah.
Like this isn't health at any size and body. It's not. Okay, it's deeply unhealthy, and she fucking ended up in hospital. And luckily, one of the people like me who'd said something about it meant that she had that seed planted, and then when she hit rock bottom, she was ready. Yeah, the same in alcohol recovery. It's like, we tell people it's not okay. It's not okay to be a junkie and steal from your mum. It's not okay.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying now, and I'm giggling because like when this podcast come out, the podcast like right before it is the unshaming way. Like we're talking about not shaming, but it's so I'm like, wait, I want to put you two together. No, but what you're talking about is a really fascinating concept that I think will really have women thinking, because a lot of the conversations that I get to have with women, they're trying to figure out how accountability is the word that comes up for me. I don't think I can use the word shame yet. But
Yeah, we're not there yet. I get it. You've been poisoned by American
these
hyper-individualism.
these
It's
but I think these women are figuring out, they're trying to critically think about like how the personal growth world has told them, you need to get rid of this mom guilt, you need to get rid of this mom shame. And when they come to work with me, they're afraid that I'm going to tell them, no, it's okay, you just do this. And I'm like, no, this is really
yeah,
important
yeah,
information for you to have about if your behaviors
yeah.
align
True,
with your values. If
true,
you're
true.
if how you're showing up in the world aligns to who you claim you want to be, we don't want to lose that. Like we don't want to lose that for all this love and self-acceptance. I'm like, I don't think
I'm
you
with
can
you.
do
I'm with
that.
you. Listen, here's all personal growth aimed at women, right? It's so manipulative. This is all personal growth aimed at women.
Yeah.
Nothing's your fault. You're very special, and nothing's your fault.
And a
And
victim,
it's
for sure.
and it's and you're a victim, and that's so disempowering.
Yeah.
Yeah, like actually, if we really cared for people, we need to get out of that. Victim has become a religion, particularly in woke America.
And
Jonathan
trauma.
Haidt
Yeah.
wrote about this. Trauma, everyone's traumatized. I'm going to Berlin this weekend. It's the same there, not just to pick on America. You have an introductory circle, and everyone tells you their pronouns. Everyone tells you their neuroatypicality, and everybody tells you their trauma. And it's like, how about just tell me your fucking name? Let's start there. So it's really getting silly at this point, and no one's impressed. Like people in Ukraine are just laughing at us. They just think the whole thing's
Who
hilarious.
are in actual like active
Yeah,
trauma.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like they're like, oh, someone in California is traumatized because they can't get a decaf fucking latte, and someone used a pronoun they didn't like. It's like, get over yourself, darling.
Mm.
Come on. So I mean, I have this juxtaposition in my day. I'm on the phone to Ukraine, then I'm on the phone to Portland, and it's pretty hilarious at times.
I I just love that.
Challenging. I get it.
I like challenge though. I like to be challenged. And my favorite thing is to work with people or to learn from people who are going to challenge me, because at some point, part of my journey is I had done therapy and I knew why I was messed up. I could look at the trauma, I could look at the diagnoses, but at the end of the day, I was like, I want to feel better. I want to act better. I want to not just stay in this place where I keep blaming what happened in my early childhood. That's not happening anymore. I was like, I'm not a
Yeah.
victim
Yeah.
anymore. And yet I was showing up in my marriage as a complete victim when like it wasn't like, what's he gonna do about it? He can't, he can't go back and like fix what happened. And there had to be, you would use the word shame, I would use the word like accountability of like, there has to be some way to get outside of instead of trying to build this safety and comfort, like, how do I show up in the world in a different way? And I couldn't get that unless someone challenged me, unless someone challenged the way that I was thinking and feeling and processing and the way that I was meaning making and my choice. Like you used the word choice earlier, and I want to come back to this meaning making. So let's say someone is in that place where their neurodivergence and their trauma is deeply impacting them in
I
motherhood.
get it. I've got it
Tell
all.
me
I've got
about
it.
it.
I'm not a mum, but I've got ADHD and I have childhood trauma and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So what do you want me to do? Fix all their problems?
Yeah. Tell us how to fix
Fix
ourselves.
me. Help me.
Can't you do that? Can't you give us like a 4-step formula
Yeah,
to
here's the 4 steps and buy my course. This is the commercialization of this whole field,
Agreed.
right?
Agreed.
Okay, so I like your starting point. I'd call that personal responsibility. That's absolutely like leadership 101 if I do a course in business, for example. When we do a coaching course, we have to teach people that, or they just turn up late and they don't do their homework and they make excuses. So that's like a hygiene factor. Then I'd say, okay, let's look at this tetrarchy, these 4 things, and say, where can you get some leverage, which is going to be accessible? Is it a simple 10-minute a day embodied practice? I'm if you're not meditating, why not? Get on it. 10 minutes a day. Come on. Everyone's got that. You know, I've got students who are meditating while breastfeeding, right? There's ways to do it. So it's next, co-regulation. Talk to your fucking neighbors, make some friends, form an online men's group, you know, whatever it is, right? I'm sure you've got better resources for mothers than I have around not isolating,
Yeah.
basically, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the tricky. Like there's a real cool group of mums I see in a particular cafe, and they've got a particular space in the cafe, and they're all there, and they're there most days, and there's a lot of co-regulation and community for these mums, and the cafe is really cool to kind of give them a space, and it's breastfeeding friendly, and it's so good for them, you know. And it's like, I mean, obviously I sit on the other side of the cafe, so because of all the screaming babies, but I'm really happy to see it. So this is also cultural. Like if that cafe didn't have that consideration, you know, for that space, then it would be a problem. Or do we go to the meaning making? Do we need to do some inquiry? You know, if nihilism, narcissism, and hedonism is the center of your life, good luck bringing up a child. Good luck. Like I just don't see that happening. It's like, you know, I was very lucky. My mum was actually a Catholic nun for 7 years before she met my dad. So, you know, she was just glowing spiritually with my childhood. And I didn't have a real Catholic education, but she had something because of that training she had. You know, I was very lucky to have it. She took me to India when I was 16 years old, you know.
Wow.
So it's like I had a kind of spiritual education. I was like, I'm so grateful. I love the shit out of my mum, by the way. It's like I was so grateful that she gave me that. And she made sure there was food on the table. And she was a busy working mum, but she always made sure there was real food on the table. You know, like started with the physical, make sure I got to bed on time and had some sleep, you know. And it's like, it's difficult though, isn't it? I remember my mum when I started working in war zones. One time, my mum actually drove me at 5 a.m. to the airport to go, I think it was to Afghanistan, because I couldn't get a train because it was too early, because I was taking the cheap flight, you know, early in the morning. And and she dropped me off at the airport. I thought, how hard must it be for a mother to drop her only son off at the airport, knowing that he's going to a war zone? You know, that like level of non-attachment. And I'm sure, like, you know, when I went to Ukraine, she was like, don't go. And I'm like, man has to do what a man has to do. And she's like, okay, well, just call me when you get there. So it's like, you know, like that's so hard. That's a spiritual power. That's a spiritual power, and God love her. You know, is it ecology? Is it getting a few house plants? Is it, you know, moving to the edge of town where you can walk in the woods? There's different levels of it, right? And honestly, anyone who says they've got the answer that works for everyone is selling you something. So I think the best we can have is a good system where we can go, how within that system that gives me a map for making meaning.
Tell me more. Tell me more about the map of making meaning. What do you mean by like how do people?
Well, the tetrarchy, the four things I've been discussing, right?
Yeah.
So there's four things, and
that's
you know, like
what changes how we make our meaning.
Yeah, we got okay. So it's basically one way consumer culture works. It's just by the three poisons of Buddhism. It just keeps us in fight or flight. So any social media will do that, and then you can't think. You know, you can't feel or think. You lose access to spirituality, relationships, and your own embodied wisdom, which is kind of a problem. The other one is just grasping, you know, consumer culture. So it's like gets us hooked, which again is addictive, which leads to weakness and fragility, which makes us less capable. Addiction makes you weaker, not stronger. And thirdly, it's just confusion. You know, we're just so confused. And having someone go, okay, look, this is a system. Here's some clarity. This is four things. They're mutually self-destructive, or they're, you know, mutually supporting or destructive. Here's a few practices for each. And it depends who I'm talking to, because someone like your listeners, they all know what, I don't know, gratitude practice is. But I've been around people that had no idea about that, you know? So it's like, you know, sometimes it's really low-hanging fruit when I'm working in business or with the Ukrainian military. I mean, we're like, you know, sometimes it's like, here's a 1 minute centering exercise you can do on the battlefield. And they're like, shit, this is amazing, you know? So it's other people are like, yeah. I've done, you know, I'm living in San Francisco and I've done all this, you know, somatic therapies and blah, blah, blah. And then they might need something a bit more philosophically sophisticated.
Yeah. One of the things you said, I just keep losing it. I like go to say something because I have so many thoughts going through my head right now. No, because I love it. Right? I love how much like, there's
safety's so overrated. Do you want to come back to that? We talked about like this whole safety culture, total bollocks.
You want to go back to that? Tell me more.
I'd love to go back to that.
Go back to that soapbox moment. Tell me more.
Soapbox, not about soapbox, but often in personal growth, things like polyvagal theory have become popular. And
Yep.
Deb's day energy embodied is fantastic. It's the model we used in Ukraine a lot. But the sort of top of their nervous system hierarchy is, ventral vagal safety.
Hmm.
That's a problem because that's fucking boring. And I would suggest the top of that hierarchy would be two other states, right? One is, ventral plus sympathetic, which is called adventure and excitement. And this is absolutely like, this is play.
Yeah.
This is a good date. Like think of this. I'm not sure if you're straight, but if you are, think of the sexiest man you can think of. I bet he's not safe. I bet he's safe enough, but
I'm
it's
I'm a big reader, and a big thing
what do you like?
happening right now on
Yeah,
TikTok is like
yeah,
fantasy, but like
yeah.
the all of the characters that women love are these like morally gray, like they are
Of
the least
course,
safe.
of
They
course.
are
Because
like
they're
they are the
danger
worst.
and safety
Yeah.
combined. It's a
Yeah.
gangster who's quick at being a gangster. It's a vampire, but he's not going to kill you. It's a
Yes.
millionaire, but he's going to treat you with respect, right?
Yeah.
This is every female romance novel you ever read.
Literally.
Like
Yep.
it's this is flirting. Flirting is danger and safety. It's also play. If you want to play with a child, like what I'll do to play with my niece is I'll pretend to be a monster and pretend to kill her. And then, obviously I won't. And then she'll run away screaming. And then she'll come back for more being chased, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the window of tolerance, right? But it's not just
Yeah.
tolerance. It's such a yucky word, tolerance. It's the window of fucking play, flirting, exploration, and adventure. And
Yeah.
this is where we need to be aiming. If we make safety the top, this is like toxic mother archetype, not individually, but
Ooh,
archetypally.
yeah.
This is what happened during COVID. The controlling toxic mother took it and said, everyone's going to be safe. You're not allowed to leave your
Like
homes.
yeah, it's like the codependent who needs you to be okay for them to be okay, which
That
happens a
too.
lot in motherhood to a lot of women.
True.
Raise his hand, but then I love this concept because one of the things I've been playing with in my life lately is like my fast health and my slow health of realizing that
Okay. Which tell me the difference. I'm curious.
just sometimes it feels really good to do things that feel slow and safe and
Yeah, yeah,
calming.
true,
And
true.
sometimes I want to go lift weights listening to Eminem. And sometimes, like when I think of starting this podcast, did not feel safe to my body. Everything in my body was like, this is not okay. And I had to remind myself,
Right.
this is the feeling. My sister brought me to this. It's called, what is it? Slicks it. It's these giant slides. I'm talking like you have to climb up and up and up. And I
I'm
don't
scared of
like
those.
heights.
That's too
I hate
unsafe for me. I'm
heights,
scared of those.
but we went, and the first few times I could barely get myself to go down the
Yeah,
slide because my
yeah.
body just I don't love it. I just don't have a need for speed. But I did it over and over and over and over again. And I was laughing hysterically by the end. And I was like learning I had to learn this new embodiment of risk is safe. Like
Yeah, well,
I'm not gonna die going down a slide. Like I just watched a
right.
little 6-year-old girl in a dress do it. I think I'm gonna be okay. And yet, like if I just stayed in this container of I just need to be safe and
Mm,
okay, I'm
mm.
never gonna do anything brave or crazy. And especially parenting, this is not safe.
No, of course not.
This does not feel pleasant or comfortable. But like that's okay. This is good for me. And so yeah, that's what I mean by that.
Comfort and pleasure make you weak.
Mm,
We need a balance, right? Like you can't be full David Goggins, but you need a bit of Italian there, right? But you can't go full Italian and just get lazy, right? So we
mm,
need to be stretching ourselves. We need to be pushing that line. We need to be. That's what training is in the gym. You lift a
yeah.
certain amount of weight. In the whatever meditation dojo, you do a retreat. It's difficult. You sit for 10 minutes longer, even though your mind's going like a box of frogs. This is the training principle. If we don't
Mm,
approach an edge like that, we just get weaker and weaker and weaker. And if you
yeah.
make safety your god, you also open up tyranny. So this also happens in the culture. So people get fragile and systems of governance get tyrannical. So this is what happens as a result of excess safety in culture rather than safe enough, but with some adventure. Dad throws the kid in the air a little bit higher than mum likes. Yeah, that's how nature works.
Yeah. Yeah. It almost sounds like that finding that healthy, masculine and feminine is kind of some language that people would use, or the yin and
Sure.
yang, the different energies versus I think, a lot of talk, somatics and nervous system regulation are like the thing right now for like white female coaches, which hi, it's
Yes.
me, but also I'm like,
Yes.
no, like stop making videos about teaching moms how to breathe when they're angry. Like teach them how to feel angry and how that anger needs to set a boundary or cut the codependency with her kid or
Okay.
anyways. But this idea of my nervous system needs to be regulated and I need to feel calm, I think is just keeping people stuck in this place of you're staying in the embodiment that the trauma created. And it's like, but if the trauma isn't happening anymore, how do we teach your body that you're okay and how you have agency and choice? And
Rebecca, I think you need the international yoga voice to soothe you after this. Yeah, no, I agree. So sometimes it's like, for example, if people are in polyvagal shutdown, dorsal vagal angle can be helpful, right? Just to stay with that model. But
yeah,
the other thing is like, what about passion? What about being thrown on the bed and fucked open? Like what about having adventures in war zones? What about, like actually riding the roller coaster of life? Like there's more to life than fucking safety. So
yeah,
I think for various reasons, anger could be like, I need to assert a boundary. This is really important. I don't calm myself right now. So there's all sorts of reasons why. I mean, that being said, we do need to learn to reduce the level of sympathetic arousal that the culture produces at times. But the key thing
yeah,
here is flexibility. It's the dance of the nervous
yeah,
system, not flat, calm boringness. I mean,
yeah.
essentially the problem is there's a model that was appropriate for like traumatized children, and Portland applied it to the whole world, and it's not appropriate for the rest of us.
Yeah, we need a dynamic range of health. We need a dynamic range of like that's what I mean by the fast and slow. Like I need to be able to trust my gas. This is the way I've been explaining it to women lately of like I don't think of a nerve like they're like, "Oh, I need to slow down. I have to slow down. I'm burnt
Yeah,
out." And I was
okay.
like, "I love to drive 80 on the interstate listening to my old like throwback trash music. I love that feeling." But if there's a brick stuck on that gas pedal and I can't slow down and I'm entering a school zone or there's giant curves or there's traffic, that's going to be scary as hell. I need to be able to use the gas and the brakes. I need to be able to utilize this different range of function and not just be stuck at like, ooh, there's this quote unquote balance is a big word. Balance is a
Yeah,
big
yeah,
word.
uber cool, super cool. Yeah, come to the Autobahn in Germany. We drive 120
Okay.
miles an hour. Like so cool, so cool. Yeah, uber cool, Rebecca. Yeah, no, I agree. It's you've got to have the range, right? Like we've got to
Yeah.
have the passion and the laughter, and also the calm. Like I was just sitting
Yeah.
on the couch last night with my girl, just writing my new book for young men, which no one will publish because it's too radical. And I'm just writing my book, chilling with my girl, and we're just happy, and it's calm and it's peaceful and it's not super exciting. Like that's this time for
Boring
those
fun
boring. I've had my adventures. I'm all about the boring life from now on. So yeah.
for now, maybe. I don't really believe you.
I've had some adventures in life, so I'm ready to settle down. It's
Yeah.
dogs and cats and kids and living in the woods and enough running around the world for me.
Yeah.
So that's
Puzzles
what
are
it is.
great, boring fun.
Puzzle.
I
That's
have
some
been,
old lady shit. I like it.
my husband made so much fun of me because I wanted puzzles so bad, but like just sitting there doing something that like isn't productive, listening to good music. I
Not
love
being
it,
productive. That's nice, because
but
we're in this.
it's not
Yeah,
productive, but
that's
you're
great.
doing something.
Okay,
Give it a
got it.
shot. Don't knock it till you try it.
No, I'm old lady shit. I love it. I'm gonna try it. That sounds
Make
good.
some tea, do some old lady shit, do a puzzle.
So back. I think everyone's tired of having to be a consumer unit of productiveness the whole time. Like the hustle culture that's pushed on boys, for example, is just really unhealthy. Really, they're like, you got to be working 12 hours a day all the day. It's like, oh, fuck
Yeah.
off. Like I can't be
Yeah.
bothered.
Yeah. I want to come back. You said when you were talking about, passion and, kind of this dynamic use of our nervous system. I was talking with some women the other day and we were talking about nothing in nature is more dangerous than a mother with cubs.
A
Nothing. And
tiger.
yet, like, I feel, well, but like the most dangerous tiger is a tiger with babies,
Yeah,
the
yeah, there's
mother
some truth
tiger,
in
right?
that, but I
At
don't
least in
think.
Colorado, the worst thing you can
Okay,
come across
okay.
is a mama bear with babies. How
We
about that?
have ducks in England, so I'm not. I can't relate to this.
Okay.
Our lads, a bit more benign here.
If you come to the mountains of Colorado, the
Okay, you got to be
worst
careful of bears with baby bears.
bears, whatever, probably not that concerning. But if that bear has babies with
Cougars. I love a cougar. Who doesn't like a cougar? Who doesn't like a nice
the animal
cougar?
or the,
I didn't say nothing.
you didn't say anything, but I heard you. But we were talking about like, I feel like our culture has come down on mothers so much of the expectations. Like when you were talking about your mom and describing how amazing she was, you were using such simple things. And I'm working with these women who like, even myself, we have these expectations of like, not only do I need to like provide safety, I'm going to use quotes there, but I also have to like provide emotional regulation and I have to make sure I'm always regulated so they never get dysregulated. And oh, I need them to be happy and healthy. And I was like, they're human. They're not going to be happy and healthy. That's a
No,
completely bullshit expectation for
just put
them, yet
money in a
alone
therapy
you.
fund. It'll be fine. Just
But
put
it's
money in
like,
a bank account for therapy later.
of
So
course we
it's
feel
gonna be
like
okay.
failures. Of course we feel like failures when we think that our jobs are to do all
Look,
these things. And then
it's
also, oh,
impossible.
they're trying to
It's
heal trauma
impossible.
and break cycles. But I'm
You've got to
thinking,
be a sex goddess, a spiritual
yeah,
goddess, a boss babe at work, a perfect mother, the perfect wife. It's impossible. Any one of those is a part-time
yeah.
job,
But what
and
if they want, but what if they
this is
want
why
that?
feminism was a mistake. Clearly, it's you've been
Mm.
lied to by capitalism and feminism, and they're in cahoots. So that doubles the taxation base and makes you exhausted. What was your question? Sorry. What if they? I'm
I
half
lost I
through.
lost the plot and now I just want to hear you say more of like what you would say to tell me what you think about this because I'm curious and I want to be
I'm not
challenged.
going to tell women what to do. I've been around them. That's a terrible idea. So that would be a huge mistake.
It's a
Well,
huge mistake, and yet women don't want to be told what to do, but in a very real sense, they also want to be told what to do.
yeah, when your best-selling book for women ever was about women being told exactly what to do. So it's clearly a repressed fantasy, if nothing else, isn't it? So let's be honest about that.
Yeah,
Yes. So what's the question? Sorry. I'm just having fun now.
I know. I love it. And I'm just following you. And I was like, wait, come back.
What are we talking about? Feminism's a lie. Capitalism is lied to
When
women.
when a
Consumer
woman's stuck in
culture.
that, let's say she's stuck in that embodiment, and I love like so many of your reels, you're like, how can I help you? So if I described myself to you that way, how
Yeah,
would you
yeah, yeah.
help me?
What embodiment are you stuck in, Rebecca?
The embodiment of I have to do and be everything for everyone. I have to be the spiritual, I have to be regulated, I have to be this boss babe, this
Yeah. Yeah. So first of all, a lot of love and compassion, right? Let's go back to self-care, just in just terms like, hey, perfectionism is a way to abuse yourself. Like take an out breath, like, oh, letting go of that a little bit, letting the shoulders drop 1 centimeter. That's a third of a
mm,
freedom unit. Yeah, it's just like letting go a little bit. Let's start there. Okay. And then that's the sort of nice part. That's me being nice. When I coach people, a lot of it's just love. It's just love, like that's what people like the kids I coach, they just need a bit of fucking encouragement sometimes, they don't need
they just
much.
need a break.
Just they need, yeah, someone tells them they believe in them and they can do it and gives them an old suit for their first job interview. It didn't take much. It really doesn't.
Which I
They
think is
just
a
get,
lot of what women need too. Like what you just described. I'm like, they
yeah.
just need someone to tell them they're doing a
Well,
good
they need two
job.
things. The first bit is a bit of love and a break. And then the
Yeah.
second thing maybe is less, women aren't going to like this bit so much, which is choose. Okay,
Mm.
so society is telling you to be five things, and maybe in your life you can be all five. I've never seen anyone do all five at once, and I coach very rich people with nannies and all sorts of phenomenal smart women with languages, degrees, Harvard, etc. Choose, and women don't like to choose. You ask a woman if she wants chocolate or cake, she'll say chocolate cake. Yeah. So, which of your children do you want to sacrifice?
Mm.
Okay. Which of your children do you want to drown so the others are going to live? That's a tough message, right? It's like, yeah, you want to run a company, you want to have a business, you want to work 50 hours a week. Okay, then you're going to neglect your kids. Is that what you want? Okay, do you want to be a working mum? Okay, that's totally valid. My mum was a working mum. There's lots in that. I respect that. But, it's going to be harder to put dinner on the table. Yeah, and just in terms of like the time and care and love that's needed, there's just so many hours in a day, right? You want to be a spiritual goddess and go to Bali? Okay, this is a sacrifice, right? So
Mm.
it's the idea society has lied to you. It has told you it's many lies, right? Men and women are the same. That's a lie. Women are the same as men. Complete lie. Women can do everything. Complete lie, right? Like what makes you valuable is how much you fill out an Excel spreadsheet for some dickhead in a corporation. Like, I've never seen that provide meaning in a woman's life. It's great to have women in the workforce because you can tax the shit out of them and the state can raise their children and brainwash them. But in terms of actual satisfaction, most women I know are satisfied.
Mm,
There's some percentage who are career women, but not that many.
yeah.
To be honest, 4/5 at least would be, as my girlfriend says, I want a partner that's rich enough that I can unsuccessfully run a boutique coffee shop. Right? They might like a part-time job doing something fun, but you don't want to work how I work. Like, I had a girlfriend that stayed with me and she saw how I work. And she's like, let's take a break. And I'm like, I don't have time to go to the toilet today.
Mm,
Yeah. Like, you don't want to work like this. This would kill you. And you don't want to work on the front lines in the war in Ukraine. You don't want to work down a coal mine. You don't want to work as a plumber even. So it's like, let's get real. Let's get real. What's actually good for the nervous system of most women? And there are exceptions. There's some great academics I know who are women. There's some kick-ass businesswomen I know who are women. The women I know in Ukraine are some of the strongest, coolest women you can imagine. And their nervous systems are fundamentally different than men's. Like that. That's been my conclusion doing embodied work for the last 20 years.
mm. There's this constant frame, and it's not even boss babe culture, but there's something similar that happened. You know how diet culture has now become like health culture, but it's kind of the same thing in a different language. The same thing has happened with boss babe culture, which is now that there's this literal culture in the coaching world, at least, where these millionaire mothers, but like they're showing a very feminine lifestyle while like raising their babies and running a 6-figure, 7-figure multiple business.
You can have it all. That's the lie, right?
You can have it all, but now there's an addition of you can have it all and you can do it without burning out, and you can do it while having this slow, peaceful, easy life. And I'm in the first 5 years of my business. I'm raising babies while I'm building this. And I have my own set of what I'm doing. But I look at that, and so many of their stories are they had the businesses that they built burning out. And now that they have the money, they're working
Right.
25 hours a week. Now that they have
they destroyed themselves making it happen. I mean, I'm the same. I worked for 10 years in a way that absolutely destroyed me.
Yeah.
And I'm way more suited to this modernity than most women are, just nervous system wise, typologically,
Mm-hmm.
And it absolutely destroyed me at a certain point. I had a burnout, I had trauma from Ukraine, absolute exhaustion.
Yeah.
And it's like, now I'm sitting on a certain reputation. I've got the books on Amazon and I get invited places and it's pretty cool, like it's Norwegian ICF, International Coach Federation yesterday and Berlin this weekend, but that's all based on 10 years of really crazy hard work. And it's, I wouldn't wish that on many people. Like that is, you have to be talented, work your ass off and be lucky to make a business work. And, there are coffee shops in my town that don't open until 10 a.m. because they're middle-class women who don't need the money running them. And good luck to them. But, that's not a business. That's a hobby. So it's like, if I want a coffee at 8 a.m. and you can't be bothered to get out of bed because you're tired, it's not going to happen. So, yeah, make your choices.
I'm just giggling at picturing women listening to this. Half of them are going to feel immense relief.
Yes, someone told them the
relief and
truth.
permission. And some people are going to be so pissed because we want to be able to, I think manifest is the word that like people always use of like, you can manifest this. It's like, here's your perfect strategy to create this. And I'm just sitting over here like, is this what's really happening? Is this how it really feels? Is this how you built this? Because how you maintain something is very different than how you build something.
Yeah, it's a lie. You're being lied to. And women lie to themselves, they lie to each other, and society definitely lies to them to sell them stuff. And no one likes anyone who tells the truth. But you know what? I'm off Tinder. It doesn't matter. So fuck it. So, it's like most of your listeners aren't going to buy my courses anyway. So it's all good. I can just tell the truth. This is what we got to do in this weird post-truth world. We just got to. Society's turned into a weird death cult. And part of that death cult is suppressing mothers. Like motherhood is the most beautiful, powerful thing in the world. And society, and that spiritually, every culture in the world has always said that and known that. And suppressing motherhood is absolute. Saying anyone who thinks they're one is a woman shitting on mothers generally. So, the birth rate in America and Britain is well below replacement at this point. So it's like we need mass migration just to kind of keep capitalism going at this point, which destroys communities. My family immigrants, so I don't blame individuals, but it's not sustainable on a societal level. And yeah, the weird death cult of postmodernity. I think though people are seeing through it. I think that people are realizing the lies are kind of getting silly. Like, so it was when J.K. Rowling spoke up about some of this stuff a few years ago, she had a really hard time. But I think now people are realizing she was right. And, she was on the side of women. And I see a lot of women realizing this now. And frankly, I think the men let the women down, that we didn't stand up to the bullshit. And for some people are very invested in it. And there will be hysterical people with blue hair emailing you from the Bay Area after this, and that's fine. They can, manifest some calm and go to calm their nervous system. But most women what I see, that I say that this is my point of view, I could be wrong. Often it's a relief. It's just a relief to hear it.
Yeah. Well, and also there's something I just want to say, there's something powerful in the way that you show up, and I really appreciate it I'm thinking of my husband who used to trigger the hell out of me because he told the truth. And how dare he? When I'm a people pleaser and I'm this codependent, and then he has the audacity to just tell the truth about what he's thinking or how he sees the world. It was just it offended me. And I've learned to appreciate how healthy and good and wonderful that is. And I see that in you, of this healthy, I think this healthy masculine energy that I really appreciate. And I think a lot of women will feel very empowered by, because I even hate the word empowered, because I think women are so used to, I need you to give me permission. I need you to tell me how powerful I
Mm,
am. And I
mm,
don't, I
mm.
don't see you coddling that. I don't see you playing to this whole story of women or mothers being in this role where they need your permission somehow. You're saying you already had it. It's the feeling I get. Those aren't words that you said, but that's the feeling I get of well, no, women need to be talked to like they're not dumb. And can we not pink wash personal growth for you and healing and make it seem like it has to be this cutesy thing? Like when you were saying it's dark, it's yeah, no, please talk about the darkness. Please bring it, because I think women are starting to get sick of this act of personal growth being shiny and happy and good all the time. And wait, no, that's only part of the human experience.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Thank you for that. I want to get you on my podcast. Actually, I think you've got good things to say. So
I would
you're
love
you're,
that. That
you're
would be very
super
fun.
welcome, Rebecca. We'll set that up afterwards.
This has been such a good conversation, and I'm dying to know what resonates with people, and I'm so excited to hear. But I just
Good luck. Good luck.
there's
Have fun with that.
no, I loved this conversation. There was so many, I'm excited to go back and listen and be wait, what was that he said? I feel like you are such a wealth of the way you see things, and the way you explain things is so different. And I think that's what's so beautiful is I've heard a lot. I've been in the growth and healing and therapy and all of that world for a long time. So at some
Well,
point you're oh, I've heard it.
most of what you're hearing is memes. So I don't mean the pictures that are funny. Most of what you're hearing is people replicating things that sound good, like neurons that fire together, wire together. It's like, bitch, that just rhymes. It's like stirring with a knife causes strife. I mean, it's just mimetic. It's just sticky. It just pleases you by agreeing with what's already in your brain. It doesn't actually have any meaning, and it hasn't been reality tested on the sharp edge. So I just say to listeners, when you're listening to people, is this person, does they know their stuff really? Like, I don't know, Anna Lemke, I mentioned earlier, she's fantastic. She knows her stuff, and she knows it scientifically, but she also knows it experientially. She's worked with addicts
Yeah.
for many, many years. And you can tell if people have actually kind of pressure tested stuff, or if they're just replicating some, vulnerability is the essence of female leadership. That's just fucking words. That's all it is. So you can hear the difference.
I just want to I want to do another podcast with you, but I just want to sit here and let you just talk.
That's the Irish superpower. I just
And
talk at people. It's totally antisocial.
I love the way you talk and communicate. I felt great with it. It felt great socially
Oh,
for
I'm
me.
glad you enjoyed
So
it, Rebecca. I'm not trying to upset anyone, like I do poke and provoke a little bit, but honestly, like, look, my granddad fought on D-Day, right? My friends are fighting on the front lines of Ukraine. If I talk to the trauma team there, I can hear artillery in the background some days, right? They're brave. Speaking the truth to people who might make a mean tweet about you if they don't like it, that's not brave. Okay. This is pretty low level courage if this is all I have to do to be considered brave these days. So, yeah, speak the truth, even if your voice shakes. And I think we've realized now the cancel culture mob are traumatized Muppets, and we should not be letting traumatized Muppets run the world.
I feel like we just end there.
Boom!
That's the
Mic
clip for
drop!
social. That's the clip for social media. That's the.
Do it. Do it. You see, your
That's the.
brain is parasitized. It thinks in social media clips. This is what
Oh my
happens to us.
God. I know, but it's true. And we think in these social media clips and not in real tested life. And I think people are finally getting sick of that. I think people, hopefully, are finally getting on social media and realizing, like, just because you can make a reel doesn't mean you can apply this in real life.
I've had like over 600 guests on my podcast, right? And it's such a privilege. I absolutely fucking love it. Some really all the top trauma people, embodiment people. It's
Yeah.
great. I love that I can talk to them. Some of them I become friends with afterwards. It's pretty cool. But there's definitely been a wave of like influencers who came through Instagram, and my PA was like, "Yeah, they've got 200,000 followers. Get them on. They're talking about narcissism." And then they were like a massive narcissist themselves, right? Or trauma people that have never experienced anything hard in life. It's kind of weird, but this also, let's finish positively. I think we live in the worst time to be alive spiritually.
Hmm.
So we are the least spiritually successful culture in human history. The imprisonment rates in the States, the suicide rates, child suicide is a thing,
Oh,
the drug addiction rates, the suicide rates, the deaths of despair generally. We are spiritual losers, but we're also the luckiest culture to be alive. Like we're materialistically way better off, and things have dipped a little bit the last few years, but like I live like a king. My ancestors were Irish peasant farmers starving and fighting off the Vikings, It's like I can have these cool people on my podcast. People can listen to your podcast. They can get all this. Well, we live in a place we have so much information. We can take the piss
oh
out
my
of the
God.
people we don't
Yeah.
like. I used to have to fucking walk to the library to get a book out on the one psychologist in the bookshop. It's
Yeah.
like we live in an amazing time, and it's all a fucking joke. You're a black basketball player. I'm just a kid who does, I'm the kid from the British equivalent of Alabama who doesn't know what he's talking about. So no one should take this seriously. It's beautiful. We have the best opportunity human beings have ever had, and it's all a joke anyway.
I love there's something to me about, so the podcast that you had listened to and you said you had listened, that's Luis Mojica. And one of the things I worked with him as a mentor, and one of the things he talked about is like, think about the people you want to work with. And I was like, I love working with like deep spiritual thinkers, but I was thinking of something. I was like, but they also have to be sarcastic. They also have to be able to take a sense of humor, because I don't know how to be human or spiritual or do this quote unquote healing work or whatever the hell that means. I don't know how to do that without making memes. I don't know how to do that without making dark jokes, because like that is a part of it to me. It's like it's grounded and rooted in taking myself in life way too seriously and also not seriously at all. Like remembering that like none of this is, I don't know, it's all temporary.
Humor's way more important than people think. Humor's actually the lead edge of the zeitgeist, the sort of group culture mind, sort of
Mm,
Hegelian term. Humor's how we move forward as a species. It's like why comedians are often saying the most interesting things that can't quite be
yeah.
said. Humor's up and down regulation. Humor's got a magic to it. Humor's a way of making the unbearable bearable. Humor's how we think. We can think in jokes before we can think logically. So, like, yes, it's a problem. A lot of Americans aren't very funny, particularly the therapists from
They're very funny.
California. It's a real problem. They're too sincere. So yeah, no, you've got some great stand-up though in America. So bringing and when they went after the comedians, I was like, okay, things are getting bad now because they perform a sort of shamanic function. Humor's way. This is a very Anglo-Irish perspective, but humor's way more important than most people think. And if you are interviewing for therapists, get them to tell you a dick joke. And if they can't tell you a good dick joke, then definitely don't.
If that makes them uncomfortable, yeah.
It's like, yeah, if that makes them uncomfortable, the shit I get up to is no way gonna fly. So
Oh
yeah,
my goodness.
listen, we're just rambling now. Should we wrap this up?
No. Yes. Thank you so much for being here. I loved this conversation so much. Where can people find you? I highly recommend your Instagram. It's just really good quality content, also good memes. I was checking out your website the other day. I'm super fascinated with the work you're doing with men and young boys. I hope you write the book and get it published.
I have written the book. It won't get published. It'll have to be self-published. So people can find me on Grindr. And no, that's just in my dreams. I'm talking to my gay mate earlier. I was like, I'm not
I
gay,
started nodding, and then I was like, wait,
you're
what did you just say?
I'm not gay, but if I was, I would win it. I would so win it if I was gay. Like I'm teaching in Berlin tomorrow, so I'm teaching with the gay community, so that's why I'm thinking about that. No, not Grindr. Embodimentunlimited.com. We have coaching courses that are actually relatively sensible. Amazon, the Embodiment Podcast, all basically just put Mark Walsh embodiment into the internet, and sensible and unsensible things will come back.
I love it. And we'll have your links below. Thank you so, so much for being here.
Becca, I hope this doesn't get you cancelled. Thanks.
Thanks for joining me on today's episode of the Motherhood Mentor Podcast. Make sure you have subscribed below so that you see all of the upcoming podcasts that are coming soon. I hope you take today's episode and you take one aha moment, one small tangible piece of work that you can bring into your life to get your hands a little dirty, to get your skin in the game. Don't forget to take up audacious space in your life. If this podcast moved you, if it inspired you, if it encouraged you, please do me a favor and leave a review. Send an episode to a friend. This helps the show gain more traction. It helps us to support more moms, more women. And that's what we're doing here. So I hope you have an awesome day. Take really good care of yourself, and I'll see you next time.